It's been a couple weeks since I worked on this, the 912. I welded in that section. I made a little patch right here, that was a piece that was gone. I was able to cut out the other side and had that welded. And the more I got to looking, looks like a little bit underneath the battery box is gone. Typically hate it when people use their finger and point at stuff on videos, but I don't know any other way in this instance. So I think, looks like this never got reattached because it was partially gone, so I believe this section of metal should curve all the way around and attach in that area and kind of mimic the shape of where the battery box is. All the metal here was never reattached and it's just filled in with seam sealer. And then in the front, that's gone. So I think what we will start by doing is trying to recreate what needs to be on that side to kind of stiffen this up. Where we left off, I bent up this piece and welded it in to try to get it started. But this front lip of this piece was not attached to anything when they put the repair panel in, and there's really nothing left of it. So I took advantage of having a break at work and a shear, and I bent this piece. So the plan is here, since you can't buy a repair panel for this, is I will scab this thing, just attach it and keep working it around until I run out, and then I'll probably have to make another one. But this is not exactly like a straight line, so I need to fabricate this curve and get this curve cut into it, try to match that. So I'll probably chop some of this off so I can get a little better view of the actual angle of curve I need, because this is all bent up and mangled. So let me get that cut out of the way, and then we'll probably get this shrinker stretcher out and try to bend this curve into it. So that mangled part's cut out of there. So it looks like about right there where it curves kind of around straight and runs straight all the way over here, and then probably makes the same curve in that area and that area. But initially, take this new piece, we'll get it butted up, mark that, and we'll get that thing kind of fitted in there. Okay, so this piece needs to curve around this direction right about in this area. So I'm going to need to, this will be the bottom. I'm going to need to shrink this to make it curve, and then I'm going to need to stretch this. The shrinker die is already in the shrinker stretcher, so we will do some shrinking right there, making sure I got this right. Someday I'll make a real stand for this, but it's not like I do enough of this to warrant it right now. I got enough crap in here. So essentially this thing has jaws in here that bite on the metal and pull it together. The opposite of that is the stretcher die. So that's the shrinker one. The stretcher setup all seems to fall apart every time I take it out. Let me get that put back together and put in there. Okay, so that's how that one works. Squeeze down and it grabs the metal in that jaw area and stretches it, pulls it apart. This little bail goes in there. Now it's in there.
So now that we've squeezed that together, it's kind of distorted it. So I should be able to go in here and stretch this, and it ought to fix that. So let me see, maybe you can see it moving. I don't know if you can see that bend, but it stretch is pretty pronounced. The shrink not so much, unless you have a place for it to go. So now we've created that curve. We can about compare it to about compare it to that edge. Looks like we need to go a little bit more. That's not far off. So let me tweak that a little bit more. We should be good. Getting a good camera angle in here is kind of difficult, but there's the piece we've bent up. And I have it clamped in with one of these long reach vice grip clamps, kind of in position. So I think next step will be we're going to take a grinder and cut through both pieces so I can get it butted up. Probably need to push this over a little more. So I'll get that fitted up and I'll grind through it, and then we can see if we can get it welded in. Let's try to clear some of this out of the way. So that's trimmed out. The intent is we don't lose that in the black hole down there. Can't hang on to this thing. So that's trimmed to fit. I'll go there with the flap disc and the grinder and clean that up. And then we'll blow all that junk out of that channel, and we can start getting it welded in. Watch your eyes. I've ground the burrs off and drilled holes for essentially fake spot welds and rosette welds in this case. Got it fitted as best as we can, blown it out. I also put some weld through primer underneath there. So at this point, I'm just going to start tacking it in, and then we'll work our way around, get it held down, and then we can try to seam weld all this up. I suspect this is pretty thin, the existing metal, so it's probably going to take a little bit of work because it's probably going to melt away and burn pretty quick. I have the welder turned down really low and I'm burning through, plus my battery's about dead. Looks like I got a little fire going too. So let me change batteries and we'll reconvene. So it's the next day. I have weld and ground and welded and ground and welded and ground. And that's, I don't know, looks pretty good to me. At least on the part I've done. I will need to work on this next. Working across, we've come to this point. So the original piece that I replaced ended right there.
Let me go across the battery box. So I'll need to make this about up to there. I've done a cardboard template of piece I want to make, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll trim it. So I don't have a pre-made piece here, so we'll have to cut it and make it by hand. Harbor Freight was kind enough to send me a coupon. Imagine that. So we'll see how this air shear works. Try my luck with these. I think we'll move on to the vise. So now we need to bend this that way. That may prove a little more difficult. Let's try this. Take a pry bar with a square handle. Get in the vise. That's pretty good, at least for what we're doing. So with just a little bit of shrinking and stretching, we have come up with that, which I think will work. So now we'll need to clamp that in there and then cut around, and so it'll fit in. So it's the next day. I cut this out yesterday. It goes like this, and appears as though I have a pretty good sized gap at this end right here, so that might be a little challenging, but I should be able to fill that in. And then we're going to have to work on this, which is going to be hard because can't really get in there. That's my working room. So let me get ready and we will get this welded in. Dang it. So it's in there. I have some magnets holding it. Let's get it welded. So when it welds like that, it's advisable to go check your gas and make sure it's on. So let's try this with some gas.
and so forth like that. Okay, so that piece is welded in and ground. Next, we need to work our way up the battery tray. I'm going to show you through this little hole right here, if we can see it. So when they hacked in this panel, they just eliminated what was holding the battery tray in. So there's like a big gaping hole right in here. I'm going to make a piece and weld it not so prettily to that to stiffen it up. I think I'm going to save you the pain of watching that, and I'll bring it back when it's done. Alright, so that's attached. It's in there. Not much you can see, but there's not a big gaping hole there anymore. You can never see that anyway, but it should be a little more structurally sound. So I finished this up last night, threw some primer on it. Now I guess I'll work on this disaster here, where it was brazed. There's some holes. I think I can just patch these pieces in and make this kind of back right, but then we'd have to make a whole new piece all the way over there, and then we get into the seam sealer braze disaster on this side. I'm not sure what I'm going to do there yet, but for right now I'm going to get this patched, and then we'll work on making this piece, because it's obviously, if you can see it, it's not really connected to anything, and it doesn't need to look perfect because the fuel tank will cover all that, but it'd be nice to have a little structure. So I have spent the last probably 30 minutes making this piece, cutting that out, and that is going to go in next. To give you an idea of where this piece is, so it's kind of the front of the fuel tank area. Okay, so that piece is welded in there. It's not quite level right there, but you'll never see that. I'm going to go through here and grind some more. And then next, we'll go ahead and try to do some of this mess around here. But that'll probably be another night.